What's going on, everyone? Today is the 8th of October, 2024. My name is Derek, and welcome back to this, the 88th edition of the Superstream. And a special edition of the show it will be, because today...
we're going to be talking about the penis!
That's right, with Hurricane Milton barreling towards Florida's western coast, we're going to talk about a deep numeric riddle that all ties back to the late 19th century and the construction of America's Phallus, the Washington Monument. As I will show you in a little bit, the path for Hurricane Milton is currently forecast to split straight through the middle of Florida. And this unlocks a deep mystical riddle that all ties back to Egyptian mythology, the story of Osiris, who was cut up into 14 pieces by his brother Set. And this all ties into the 1993 story about John Wayne Bobbitt, an American man whose wife reportedly sliced his wang off after a marital dispute. In the year 1998, John Wayne Bobbitt showed up on WWE Raw. And what we're going to show you in this video is how it's all synced up together. The WWE, weather warfare, and it all comes together with the Skull and Bones and 9/11 code. Over on Decoding with Cody, he's done a few streams lately about this hurricane. And I encourage you to check those guys out, or check these videos out when you have a minute. And what he explains is how this is synced up with The Rock of WWE. And I'm going to take that riddle and run with it. So just the other night at WWE's Bad Blood in Atlanta, Georgia, The Rock made his return, I believe since the first time since WrestleMania. And for the past year, The Rock has been portrayed as the Storm God in WWE, with a bolt of lightning announcing his appearance on the show. The Rock is currently using the nickname Final Boss. In the language of Gematria, the phrase Final Boss is a perfect supermatch with the word hurricane. In the 1990s, Dwayne Johnson, who plays The Rock on WWE, played football for the Miami Hurricanes. And Miami, one of many Florida cities, currently forecast to be destroyed by Hurricane Milton, as it does appear the hurricane has slowed down over the past 24 hours, but a strong storm nonetheless, and one not to mess with. Back in the year 2003, The Rock was upset by a wrestler named The Hurricane. Gregory Helms, a.k.a. Hurricane Helms, rolled up The Rock after he was distracted by Stone Cold Steve Austin. And this date is significant. We'll glance at that later. But we're going to talk about how this ties into Hurricane Milton, which is fast approaching the west coast of Florida. Potentially one of the worst hurricanes in many, many years. Now, rather intriguingly, The Rock is apparently friends with a man with Down syndrome whose name is Milton. Back in 2004, we learned that The Rock has apparently been friends with this guy named Milton ever since he was a child. And of course, this is the name of the storm that's now headed towards Tampa, Florida, and Orlando. It's worth noting that the WWE's developmental territory is located in the Orlando area, which looks to be in the path of this storm. But no matter whose forecast you look at, this storm is set to strike right through the southeastern phallus of America, the state of Florida. Now, I can't say this is a concept I've heard of many people discuss, but you know, out of all the states in America, Florida is no doubt the most phallic. And when it comes to America and phallic symbols, nothing tops the Washington Monument, which is, of course, an erection attributed to George Washington, the first American president. Now, the Washington Monument opened its doors to the public back in the year 1888. But more intriguingly is that this happened on the date October 9th. And this is the date I've been focusing on this channel for probably over a year now. October 9th, known as the anniversary of Yale University, home to the Skull and Bone Society, one of the most influential in all of American politics and society. And indeed, Hurricane Milton is scheduled for an October 9th landing on the state of Florida, meaning it will be the anniversary of the date the monument opened and Yale University. This hurricane is set to make landfall exactly 323 years after the founding of Yale University. 323, or March 23rd, happens to be the birthday of a man named John Wayne Bobbitt. Now, for those of you who weren't around in the early 90s, this was one of the biggest news stories of the year, and it highlighted marital violence. The story goes that Lorena was unhappy with John, whether it be abuse or neglect, and decided to cut his penis off in the middle of the night. Not only that, but she threw it alongside the road, which just cemented the Osiris riddle that sat underneath, as Osiris's brother Set cut his body into 14 pieces and then threw the penis aside, which was then recovered by Osiris's wife Isis. Now, John Wayne Bobbitt, believe it or not, has a strong connection to the WWE, because back in the year 1998, as a bit of an aside, when I was 13, this was the first episode of WWE Raw that I ever watched. And I can't explain why this is what got me into wrestling, but here we are. Notice how the word castration sums to 1998 using square numbers. And this is the year that John Wayne Bobbitt appeared on WWE programming. And the reason he was there is because the previous week on Raw, wrestler Val Venus was attacked by a Japanese group called Kaientai, who had threatened to chop his penis off. And they got really close, but the lights were turned off at the last second, and we learned the following week that it was actually John Bobbitt who saved him. Now, Val Venus, the wrestler's name, of course, Venus, the planet of love, and this character was a porn star in wrestling. But Venus also rhymes with penis, and as it turns out, this is the main riddle that Val was brought in for in this company. Now, check this out. When Lorena Bobbitt chopped off John's willy back in 1993, John was a span of exactly 1,370 weeks old. Well, when Val Venus almost got his willy chopped off on WWE Raw, look how old The Rock was. A span of exactly 1,370 weeks. Which means he was the exact same age, all the way down to the number of days, 9,589 days, as John Wayne Bobbitt when he was sawed off back in 93. Now, this number, 137, found in the measurement of both of these men, this is a special occultic number because 137 is the 33rd prime number, and everyone knows how 33 is associated with the Kabbalah, the occult, and Masonry, whose highest degree is the 33rd. Well, isn't it interesting that John Wayne Bobbitt turns exactly 3,003 weeks old when Hurricane Milton strikes Florida's west coast? To make this more intriguing, Lorena Bobbitt sliced off his manhood 3,003 days before the 9/11 attacks. 9/11, the date when the two towers, twin phallic symbols, were destroyed, ultimately replaced by just one phallic symbol. This number 33 is also connected to ancient Egyptian mythology, which has an ordinal gematria of 303. Quick look at gematria here. We focus on the 4 base ciphers, which numbers the alphabet 1 through 26 forwards or backwards, and then uses the rules of numerology to reduce double-digit numbers. This is also called Pythagorean gematria. As always, we also have our standard and Latin or Agrippa's key methods, and there's certainly something very special about this Latin cipher, as we will see. What I believe to be the most significant cipher in the study of gematria. So speaking of the Washington Monument opening up on the same day that Yale University was founded, October 9th, here we see that the monument opened exactly 187 years after the founding of Yale University. Well, 187 is the ordinal gematria of George Washington. In reverse, Washington, D.C. also equals 187. And the Skull and Bone Society at Yale University is also called the Brotherhood of Death. Brotherhood of Death equals 187, just like Society of Jesus. And indeed, there's a strong riddle with the Jesuit order, as we will see. Ancient accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry also shares that special 187. So now we get Hurricane Milton headed straight for America's Phallus, cutting right through the state of Florida, also on October 9th. And notice how in the base ciphers of gematria, Hurricane Milton sums to 180 and 81. This is the gematria of John Bobbitt, 180 reverse, and 81 is the gematria of Sean Allen Morley, the real name of the man who plays the wrestler Val Venus. And as we will see, his numerology is super synced to all of this. And it's very clear to understand why WWE had him play a porn star, given all of the numbers he shares with this Osirian myth. Hurricane Milton also sums to 232 using capital letters. We will also peek at the capital letter ciphers as we go. These methods maintain the alphabetic order, but either mix or add the capital letters into the equation. In multiple capital methods, the name John Bobbitt equals 232. .232 also connects to Choppy-choppy your pee-pee, and that's what this whole episode was known for on WWE Raw. Because, again, it was a Japanese group that attacked Val Venus in the locker room. And the guy, Yamaguchi, raises the sword. He says, "I'm going to choppy-choppy your pee-pee." And you will not believe how the gematria of that phrase ties into all of this. It is pretty wild. But first we start with the John Wayne Bobbitt incident, which occurred back in the year 1993. And this 93 is a big piece of the pie. Notice how in the reduction cipher of gematria, Egyptian mythology equals 93. In Sumerian gematria, the alphabetic order times 6, Osiris myth also equals 930. And when Val Venus was attacked on WWE programming, it was by a guy named Yamaguchi, who also has that 930. Well, John Wayne Bobbitt was born on a date with 93 numerology, 3 plus 23 plus 67. And And when he was attacked by his wife in the year 93, it was a span of 93 days after his birthday. Using Fibonacci numbers, President George Washington also sums to 930. In the reverse alphabetic order, Egyptian mythology equals 222. Well, Lorena Bobbitt was born 222 days after John's birthday. Now, it's worth noting that there are actually multiple different dates given for her birthday, but I'm going with the one that the vast majority of sources use. You know, it's interesting, this other birthday they give for her is May 15th or 15/5, because in the language of Gematria, Osiris myth equals 155 in the alphabetic order. But I really think it's this October 31st date, Halloween. So their birthdays are 222 days apart. When John Bobbitt was featured on WWE Raw, it was on the 222nd day of the year. And on that show, he appeared alongside wrestler Val Venus. And with capital letters, the name Val Venus equals 222. But the number 222 is also important to George Washington. In the Latin cipher of Gematria, George Washington equals 1399, which happens to be a prime number. 1399 is the 222nd prime number. The date that's written 222 is February 22nd, and that's the date that George Washington was born. 222. Skull and Bones with the ampersand also has this 2022 gematria. The Washington Monument opened 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days before a hybrid eclipse, a rare event which typically occurs once or twice per decade. This number also connects George Washington to a man named William Huntington Russell. Russell is one of 2 founders of the Skull and Bones Society at Yale University. Notice how William Russell died 222 days after Yale's anniversary and 22 weeks and 2 days after the date that George Washington died, which is December 14th. So a lot of 222 there. And remember, the number 22 is a master number. The word master equals 22. More specifically, it's called the master builder number. And master builder number equals both 220 and 122. Egyptian mythology also sums to 69. The alternate birthday for Lorena Bobbitt is in the year 69. And if this birthday is true, this means she would have been 20,237 days old when Milton strikes Florida tomorrow, which is the ordinal value of Egyptian mythology, 237. And with her other birthday, she was 237 days after her birthday with the end date when she cut John's penis. So let's look a little bit closer at the numerology of October 9th this year, tomorrow, and how it connects to this code. We start with the number of days between the Bobbitt's birthdays. When Lorena Bobbitt was born, John was 3 years, 7 months, and 8 days old. 378 is the Sumerian gematria of both penis and porn. Again, Val Venus played a porn star on WWE programming. Well, this storm will make landfall exactly 23 years and 4 weeks after the 9/11 attacks and 23 weeks and 4 days before John Bobbitt's birthday. In standard English gematria, the word penis equals 234. In reverse gematria, the name Sean Allen Morley also equals 234. Sean Morley was born on March 6th, written 3-6 or 6-3. Well, check out the word penis. It sums to both 36 and 63 in gematria. And if you use the reduction method, Sean Allen Morley sums to 63, just like porn. This number also perfectly connects him to John Bobbitt, the man he appeared on television with. John Bobbitt equals both 603 and 63. Well, this year, October 9th, the date of Milton's landfall, 10 plus 9 plus 20 plus 24 equals, you guessed it, 63. That date will also have a life lesson number of 27. Penis sums to 27 in both reduction ciphers. Porn 27 in 3 methods. Bobbitt 207 Fibonacci. But if you instead multiply the digits in the date, notice how you get a product of 72, which is the reverse value of penis. John Bobbitt 702, just like Sean Allen Morley 72. And for those of you keeping score at home, yes, I have broken the record for number of times I've said penis in one live stream. Potentially will never be broken. So let's talk about this date, October 9th, but instead of looking at the date numerology, just the numbers in the date itself. October 9th, written 10/9. And once again, October 9th, the opening date of both the Washington Monument and the founding date of Yale University. Florida is called the Sunshine State. The word sunshine equals 109 in the alphabetic order. Using capital letters, Milton gives us another 109. When Val Venus had his wang almost chopped off on WWE Raw, notice how that was a date with 109 numerology. The word choppy has that 109. And consider how the Osiris myth is about penis removal. The phrase penis removal equals 1090. And I wasn't going to use that phrase, but it's interesting that Wikipedia actually has a page called penis removal. So I felt like that was relevant enough to include. Measuring from the date that the Washington Monument opened up on 10/9 to that 1998 episode of Raw was 109 years. And the Washington Monument opened 40,109 days before that episode. Meanwhile, when John Bobbitt had his sausage snipped, that was 109 days before Yale's 10/9 anniversary. Now, when John Bobbitt showed up on Raw alongside Val Venus, that episode aired live from the city of Omaha, Nebraska. And in the alphabetic order, Omaha, Nebraska equals 109. Well, last year, I made this post about WWE Raw being hosted in the city of Omaha, Nebraska. And this was on Yale's 322nd anniversary. So this just goes to show you how WWE is very conscious of Yale. I mean, think about it. WWE is headquartered in Stamford, Connecticut, which is in the same area code as New Haven, where Yale is. Omaha, Nebraska, the home of Warren Buffett, whose name equals 109. Berkshire Hathaway equals 109. And then 38 days before this episode of Raw aired, we got the death of Jimmy Buffett. When John Bobbitt got attacked by Lorena, it was 109 days after Val Venus's birthday. And on that same day, John Bobbitt was exactly 109 mercurial years old. That's relevant because Mercury's orbit is 88 days, and this happened right after the sign of Gemini ended. More on the number 88 in a little bit. Well, now Hurricane Milton striking 109 days after the anniversary of Lorena's attack. But check this out. It's 31 years, 109 days. This represents John Bobbitt's age when he showed up on Raw. He was exactly 31 years and 19 weeks old. Well, this is another big skull and bones number. Remember how the World Trade Center bombing in the year 93, the same year as Lorena's attack, was 3,119 days before the attacks of September 11th. And this is the 444th prime number. John Bobbitt and Val Venus were born 1,444 days apart from each other. The name Morley sums to 444 in Gematria. Skull and crossbones equals 444, so does skull and bones 322. But whenever we talk about these 444s, all of these same phrases also sum to 885. And if you believe the birthday that's given on Wikipedia for Lorena Bobbitt, she was 8,805 days old when she cut John's penis off. The digits 885 are also found in the Gematria of ancient Egyptian mythology, a phrase which equals 1885 in Latin Gematria. Now, earlier on, I mentioned how The Rock was defeated by a wrestler named the Hurricane. And this was on March 10th of 2003. Well, if you measure from that date to the date Hurricane Milton wants to make landfall, you get 7,885 days. So there's that 885 again. But this speaks to a deeper part of the riddle, because when the Washington Monument was completed, this happened in the year 1885. 1885 is the same year that Skull and Bones founder William Huntington Russell passed away. Notice how William Russell died on the 139th day of the year. This is the ordinal gematria of both ancient Egypt and Freemasonry. And now, this year has been 139 years since the completion of the monument and the death of William Huntington Russell. And I skipped over a piece of my notes from earlier. Shout out to the chat for reminding me to mention this. The Osirian myth. Set cut Osiris's body into 14 pieces. And I totally forgot to mention this at the start of the video, because prior to being named Milton, This storm was called Tropical Depression 14. So shame on me for letting that one go over my head, but definitely a major part of this story. But isn't it interesting, guys, that in this special Latin cipher, the country of Egypt has matching 572 gematria with skull and bones. This obviously is not a coincidence, especially given what I'm sharing with this Osiris myth. Now, the Washington Monument opened in October of 1888. Well, if you look at George Washington's birthday to the first day of October 1888, well, by golly damn it, he was 57,200 days old. This is wild. So yes, WWE storylines, obviously they are scripted. We're not watching real wrestling matches or fights. And yes, they are almost always connected to events going on in the quote-unquote real mainstream media. So yeah, this was George Washington's age just 1 week before the monument opened, syncing up with Skull and Bones in Egypt. And just to prove this connection, the name Washington is a super match with Skull and Bones in the base methods. Another interesting fact about the name Washington is that it equals 985. This is the Latin gematria of Jesus. And while Jesus is the Son of God, Washington is considered to be the father of the United States of America. Now, if you measure from the completion of the Washington Monument to the birth of John Wayne Bobbitt, notice how he was born right after the monument turned 985 months old. Also, don't forget the significance of the number 73, as George Washington was born on a date with primary numerology of 73. This is the ordinal value of the word obelisk, which is what his monument is. Osiris also sums to 73, just like Egypt. And this is a number that Freemasonry has maintained the importance of. Consider the story of Hiram Abiff, whose murder must be played out by any Mason looking to ascend the organization's ranks. Both Hiram Abiff and Mason sum to 73. And Yale University, their school mascot is a bulldog. And bulldog sums to 73 in the alphabetic order. When William Huntington Russell passed away in 1885, he died a span of 88 days after the completion of the Washington Monument. And notice how the name William Huntington Russell ends with the 88. The monument opened in the year 88, and it was 88 years after the death of George Washington, whose name equals 88. So does Washington Monument. And First President, also summing to 88. And yes, this is why I put the Washington Monument directly between the digits 88 for today's Superstream. When the monument opened in the year 88, it was exactly 88 weeks before an annular eclipse. With capital letters, Egypt equals 88. But check this out. Measuring from the death of George Washington to the opening of the Washington Monument, not only was it 88 years, but it was also 88 years and 300 days. The monument opened on the date leaving 83 days in the year. Washington Monument, Yale University, Society of Jesus, Brotherhood of Death, all have that 83 Gematria. Yale founded on that same date. And now Milton, set to make landfall on that same date. And of course, in the alphabetic order, Milton, summing to 83. Down in the description below, I have links to a video I made several months ago called Superstream 74. And in that first part of that video, I talk about the connection of Yale University to the tarot, particularly the Tower card. And the Tower is relevant to what we're discussing in today's video. We have the Washington Monument, the large phallic tower, similar to the Twin Towers, which were destroyed back on 9/11. Well, if you measure from the opening of the Washington Monument to tomorrow's date, you get exactly 136 years. And this is all a riddle to the President of the United States, which sums to 1306 in Latin. In fact, that monument opened 136 days before George Washington's birthday. And of course, this is a big number to the Jesuits, which equals 136. The Jesuits founded 3 days before a solar eclipse from Saros 136. A Saros series that began on the date 13/6 in the year 1360. Well, Tower card also equals 136. And that's actually important because it's the 16th triangular number. Every number 1 through 16 sums to 136. And in our tarot deck, the 16th card is the Tower. In the Roman numerals, like the ones used on the Tower card, XVI has gematria of 1009 in both Latin and Standard. And this reminds us of the date October 9th, 1009. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this guy was 1009 sidereal months old for the monument. Yeah, there we go. So William Russell has this connection to the Washington Monument, 1009. The Washington Monument opened exactly 177 weeks after William Russell died. The Jesuit Order and Eclipse of the Sun both share a 177 ordinal. But what also stood out is that when the monument was completed, this happened on February 21st, which is just one day before George Washington's birthday. This means he would have been a span of exactly 153 years old when it was done. I guess you could call it the American Phallus, which equals 153, just like Jesuit order. And the 153rd prime number, 883, well, that's the number of years and days that passed from the death of Washington to the opening of the monument, 88 years and 300 days. Tower card also has matching 1223 gematria with Jesuit order. And George Washington died 1,223 weeks after the Declaration of Independence. His monument opened 2 months and 23 days before the next total eclipse. This number also connected Yale University to William Russell, who died 2,203 months after the school was founded and 223 days after its anniversary. skull and crossbones with the 223. But also the number 222 sums to 223, and we talked about that. So both 222 and 223. A lot of connections to all of this. Now, circling back to the WWE, when Val Venus was first threatened by Mr. Yamaguchi of Kaientai, he famously yelled into the microphone, "I choppy-choppy your pee-pee!" to uproarious laughter from the crowd. And it dawned on me to type this phrase out. "I choppy-choppy your pee-pee." And I felt like an idiot typing this into my calculator, but I couldn't believe the numbers that came up. In the reverse order, this phrase equals 315. Well, when John Bobbitt had his PP cut off, he was exactly 315 months old. The name Bobbitt equals 315. And Lorena Bobbitt was born 31 weeks and 5 days after John's birthday. Furthermore, Lorena was also 315 days after her birthday for the 9/11 attacks. But check this out. If you write out this same phrase, which, yes, I will repeat, "I choppy-choppy your pee-pee," notice how you get double gematria of 1111 in both Satanic and Fibonacci. Well, 1111 is also the gematria of wrestler Sean Morley. His name equals 1111. And Morley was born 11 months and 11 days after John Bobbitt's birthday. So, if you're thinking to yourself, is this the kind of thing you thought you'd be decoding when you built a Gematrinator all those years ago? Well, not quite. But it really does seem that they intentionally align these things with phrases like this. And I understand not every decoder is going to go down this lane, but maybe I have a dirtier mind than most. So this tends to be where I go with this stuff. Jumping around back to George Washington here. The dates of death for George Washington and William Russell are separated by 156 days. And another thing I probably should have mentioned, with this big skull and bones connection with George Washington and ancient Egypt, and this phallic Osirian monument, you know, we ended up getting 2 presidents named George in recent years. A father and son combo, George H.W. Bush, and his goofball son, George W. Bush. And yes, both of these presidents attended Yale University and graduated as members of the Skull and Bone Society. In fact, George W. Bush was even born in New Haven, Connecticut, while his father went to school there. So, I mean, his son was even probably born out of some Crowleyan sex magic ritual or some crazy stuff. Anyways, Washington and Russell died 156 days apart on the calendar. And consider how 9/11 is the 156th prime number. In the alphabetic order, 33 equals 156. Don't forget that Twin Towers sums to 330. And the towers were destroyed 33 years after construction began. And yeah, John Kerry, good mention, chat. John Kerry was also in that election, 2004, another member of Skull and Bones. And of course, John Kerry sums to 2004, just like the year he lost the election. Skull and Crossbones with the 204. Now, when the Washington Monument opened, Look how old George Washington would have been. Exactly 156 years and 33 weeks. The 33, the number of masonry. George Washington often depicted with his Masonic bib. The monument even opened exactly 3 years and 33 weeks after it was finished. When you look at the Skull and Bones Society, there's no official founding date. And I'm kind of glad there's not, because this would give me probably too many things to measure to. But we need to notice that the year is significant. 1832. This is still important. Notice how the first day of 1832 was 32 years and 18 days after George Washington died. Meanwhile, William Huntington Russell died 183 years and 32 weeks exactly after the founding of the school he graduated from. And yeah, maybe it's true that George only has a bush and is missing his mini monument. You know, I talk a lot of smack about George W. Bush, but hey, that guy could dodge a shoe, unlike anyone else. You can't convince me otherwise. So let's talk a little bit more about September 11th, guys, because there's a really big pie riddle here once again. And pie has been all the rage lately. Watch my last Superstream 87. Also, Superstream 86 and 85, all of them contain a lot of discussion about 314, the first three digits of pi, and how those numbers have been integral to what's been playing out. September 11th, 2001 is the date that the book Life of Pi was published. And this book would later be turned into a film in the year 2012, which is, of course, the year the world was supposed to end, according to many conspiracy theorists. So with any riddle connected to Skull and Bones and 9/11, pi is significant. And notice how the name John Bobbitt equals 910. Freemasons who subscribe to the rule of Kal-El and believe that you can add or subtract 1 to any Gematria value, may interpret this to be a 9/11. John Bobbitt using trigonal numbers. Now, as I mentioned earlier, John Bobbitt will be exactly 3,003 weeks old tomorrow. He was snipped 3,003 days before the 9/11 attacks, which were also 3 years and 33 days after he appeared alongside Val Venus on WWE Raw. When Val Venus was attacked the week prior on Raw, Lorena Bobbitt was 333 months and 3 days old, circling back to ancient Egyptian mythology. Well, the number 33 is very important to the state of Florida, which was admitted to the Union on March 3rd, the date written universally as 3-3. The state fruit of Florida is an orange, which equals 33. Cody recently did a video on that Supertramp album where the waitress was carrying orange juice in front of the Twin Towers. Something which has been in the poltergeist for a long time. Did I say poltergeist? I meant zeitgeist. But yeah, that was a Decode Zach did a long time ago as well. The words eclipse and circles both equal 33 in Gematria. And we talked about this earlier. John Bobbitt, exactly 1,370 weeks old when he was attacked by his wife. The same exact age that The Rock was when Val Venus was attacked on Raw. But look at this. When you write this out, in Standard English Gematria, the cipher which most closely mirrors ancient Hebrew and Greek isopsephy charts, look at this. This is insane. I choppy-choppy your pee-pee sums to 3141. The first 4 digits of pi, 3.141. New Haven, Connecticut also has these digits, but look at this. When John Bobbitt appeared with Val Venus on Raw, he was 31 years and 140 days old, the same digits. Tomorrow, when Milton makes landfall, is a span of exactly 314 months after that same date, August 10th of 1998. Remember, both eclipse and circles with that 314 satanic gematria. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a good Asian accent. So you're going to get whatever accent comes out. Now, next year, on Pi Day, there will be a special total lunar eclipse on 3/14 or Pi Day. Hurricane Milton set to make landfall 156 days before Pi Day. Eclipse in Hebrew 156, like eclipse the sun, plane of the sun, and 33 in English. And again, the 156th prime is 9/11. The name Bobbitt equals 119 reverse. The word choppy equals 911 in standard. When John Bobbitt appeared on Raw, Val Venus was 10,019 days old. And the date of that episode had numerology of an upside-down 9/11. John's appearance was also 9 months, 11 days after Lorena's birthday, and 1 month and 19 days after the anniversary of her attack. Yale is in New Haven, which equals 1019. But a strong connection that a lot of people don't realize is that this 1019 found in New Haven, this is the 171st prime number. And that represents the year of Yale's founding, 1701. It has the same digits, 171. Val Venus is played by Sean Allen Morley, whose name equals 171 in the alphabetic order. Tomorrow's hurricane set to make landfall 11 months and 9 days after Lorena's birthday. But what I also noticed is this wild alignment. On the date of Milton's landfall, Lorena Bobbitt will be 19,703 days old. And raise your hand at home if you've heard me talk about this number recently. Actually, don't do that. That's stupid. I can't see you. But this is a huge number I've been talking about in connection with 9/11, because the World Trade Center first opened in the year 1973, and in Gematria, 973 equals 1973. Well, when the Twin Towers were destroyed, it was during Brown Lunation 973. Notice how Phallus of Osiris sums to 973. Lorena Bobbitt cutting the phallus of John off and then throwing it alongside the road, just like Osiris's brother Set. If you use Lorena's other birthday, the Wikipedia one, she was born 2 years and 54 days after John Bobbitt. And the 254th day of the year is 9/11. It just doesn't stop. think there was one more thing I wanted to see here. By the way, these two different birthdays for Lorena Bobbitt, isn't it strange that these two birthdays are 1 year and 170 days apart? When her husband's name, John Bobbitt, equals 117? Seems like something other than a coincidence. All right, there's more skull and bones numbers I wanted to share with you guys. So here's a big connection with what's going on this week. So tomorrow, October 9th, is the 283rd day of a leap year. And we mentioned how it's the 323rd anniversary of Yale University, right? Well, 323, like the birthday of John Bobbitt. And notice how 323 is the date that leaves 283 days on the calendar. So these dates are completely opposite one another on the Gregorian calendar, especially when you look at leap years. But there's actually something more significant about the number 283. 666 sums to 2083, which miraculously is the 314th prime number. And this is all something connected to the moon code as well. The moon equals 283. Mathematics of the circle, which uses pi, or 314, equals 666. So does mathematical perfection. Also 666. Well, if you go from the date the Washington Monument finished to tomorrow, you get the upside down 666. When John Wayne Bobbitt was on WWE Raw, it was in the year 1998. 1998 is the third multiple of 666. And again, from that date to the date of this hurricane is 314 months exactly. And on the date he was on that episode, he was 31 years, 141 days old. Like, once again, whoever's scripting this has access to some sweet-ass algorithms. Just glancing through my notes here, I wanted to quickly look at the mayor of Tampa Bay. Was it Judy Castor or Julie Castor? What the hell was her name? Jane Castor. Milton is forecast to be headed straight for the west coast of Florida, and particularly the city of Tampa. And I hope if anyone here is in that part of Florida or knows anyone there, I mean, I really do hope you're making efforts to either hunker down safely or get out of the area altogether. I mean, what are you even doing in Florida in the first place? But I shouldn't say that. I mean, I know that home is home to a lot of people, and you know, you're not going to leave just because of a couple storms, but it really does look dangerous from what they're saying. So Godspeed and thoughts and prayers. But assuming that it's true that there's some deeper occult manifestation at play, I just think it's interesting that the mayor of Tampa is named Castor in light of all the spells being cast in order to create storms like this, which is a little bit unsettling. In fact, she was born exactly one metonic cycle after Pearl Harbor Day. 19 years, which syncs up with the lunar orbit and the lunar phase. See the name Jane. Oh, wow. Right off the bat, Jane Castor 970. In the alphabetic order, hurricane equals 97. This hurricane synced up with the rock or the final boss, which equals 97. What you're looking at here is the table I typically use to decode. I know this looks like a lot of ciphers, but I recently added these 3 mathematical ciphers back in because they are important. But really, you end up with different ranges of numbers altogether here. So Jane Castor has the 106. We talked a little bit about the number 16 in connection to the Tower card of the tarot. So she's got that connection as well. What about her birthday? 12/7/1960. Huh, look at this. 3,331 weeks old tomorrow exactly, which is the 470th prime number. Remember, beast equals 47, connected to that 666 code. Beast also 308, like final boss. Just riffing a little bit here. Not looking at anything too concrete. But this 3331 reminds me of the book of Revelation. Revelation ends with verse 22:21. Oops. And 22:21 is the 331st prime number, which in turn is the 67th, which in turn is the 19th, and she was born exactly 19 years after Pearl Harbor. Maybe I'm digging a little too deep. I don't know. But what about the date she took office? May 1st of 2019. Well, right off the bat, that's interesting. May 1st, 5-1. Check out Tampa in the alphabetic order, 51. Just like Moon. Moon has that 51. And she took office in the year 19 as well. So another 19 connection with this woman. $523 is the 99th prime number. We also get 1,988 days. Not seeing much with this, to be honest. Notice how she took office during lunation 1191. Perhaps another 9/11 nod. Castor was 3,047 weeks old when she took office. I think what's more interesting about this is the number of days. 2133. Now you get the 33 there, but don't forget the magic square of the moon sums to 3321. Here's a big one. When Castor took office, she was 700 months and 24 days old. Number of the beast, 724. Like the Brotherhood of Death, 724. And 347. There it is. Look at that. So she's got the 724 and the 347 when she took office. Brotherhood of Death, 347, 724. Guys, this is not looking good for Tampa. I'm not the kind of person to try and scare people, but this is crazy. Chat says, thanks, Eve May. There's also a Kathy Castor based in Tampa. Huh. And that's in the 14th district. Wow. Well, I mean, there's always more. You're always going to find more. There's one more section of posts that I'm looking for. Oh, okay. Well, this is where I was going to go with this. We'll end the video after this, guys. We're over an hour. So we'll start to wrap this up. Oh, I forgot to mention. Sorry. If you include the end date, tomorrow is 51,000 days after the Washington Monument was completed, to go with Jane Castor's 5-1 date, like Tampa 51. Okay. So let's wrap this up, everyone. And then we'll play you a nice little tune to get you out. So tomorrow, the 283rd day of a leap year, we talked about this and its connection to 666, but 283 is also a prime number, the 61st prime. Tomorrow will be 6 months and 1 day after the Great American Total Solar Eclipse. Tomorrow is also 61 days after the anniversary of John Bobbitt on Raw. Skull and Crossbones gives us that 61. State of Florida, Washington, D.C., Osiris myth, all also 61. Lorena Bobbitt born on the date leaving 61 days in the year. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but now someone mentioned P. Diddy in the chat, and I just laughed because every chat I look at mentions P. Diddy, no matter what the topic of the video is lately, but it might actually be connected because Diddy was in Miami. However, another big skull and crossbones sync here. When John Bobbitt had his sausage sliced, he was exactly 26 years and 3 months old. In Gematria, Order of the Skull and Bones and Skull and Crossbones both equal 263. John Bobbitt is 206 weeks and 3 days older than Val Venus. This 263 is the 56th prime number. Osiris myth is 56. Osiris's penis was recovered by Isis, which equals 56. And when Val Venus had his manhood attacked, it was exactly 5 years and 6 weeks after Bobbitt had his. This is also a number connected to Hurricane Milton, 560. The words circle and phallus both sum to 223 and 322, but this is the kind of gematria a doofus would run, because that's not how you spell phallus. So I'm not sure what I was drinking that night when I made that addition, but it's Phallus, which you would think a 6-time spelling bee champion like me would know, but you know, even the great fall sometimes. Anyway, the reason I point this out is because if you include the end date, John Bobbitt was born 3 years, 223 days after Lorena, or before. Finally, let's look at the number 112. In the reduction cipher, George Washington Monument has this 112. The Brotherhood of Death equals 112. And when Val Venus was attacked on Raw, he was 10,012 days old. And his ring name Val Venus equals 112 in reverse. Well, John Bobbitt, his friend, was born on a date with primary numerology of 112. And if this birthday here on Wikipedia was true, that means John Bobbitt was exactly 112 weeks older than Lorena. In fact, his wife's maiden name is Lorena Gallo, which equals 112. And when John Bobbitt appeared on Raw, Check out the age of the United States, 81120. So the last 4 digits end in a 112. Interesting stuff. Oh, I see we have a doxer in the chat. Look at this. That's a first. Amazing. Yeah, sorry, I don't get involved in drama like that. I mean, you guys are ridiculous. Too bad. It's pretty clever doxing also. I gotta admit. It's smart. But you know, I guess we're almost wrapping this stream up anyway, so it's probably okay for me to talk on. You know, I'm not out here to try to make enemies, okay? And I understand that there are many bickering forces within the Gematria community. I don't partake in any of that garbage. I stay aside from the drama. People can say about me whatever they want. I don't care. They don't know me. It does concern me that, you know, people are out here doxing others who are doing honest research. And look, I probably always refer people to Zach's Gematria work because he does good work when it comes to decoding the news, the government, and the media. But there's another side to what he's doing over there that isn't 100% honest. And I've talked about this before. And I'm perfectly fine with someone going one by one and looking at his picks and determining which ones are right and wrong. And I don't like that other people are going to try and dox others who do that. That's fucked up, dude. I've been doxed myself, but what happened is that when they tried to dox me, they accidentally doxed my ex-girlfriend's house, where she was living with her 2 kids at the time. So this is not a game to me. I really hate it. And whoever did that, the doxing, here, I'm going to put my face on the camera so you can look at me too. Hey, buddy, whoever's doing the doxing, fuck you, you stupid fucking cocksucker. You're a piece of shit. Get off my channel. Go the fuck home. Fuck you. Understood? Because this is a fear tactic that's used to try to silence people. And, you know, I'm the kind of person who I threw my life away for this. And I understand that doxing and losing some of my privacy was part of the thing, but you know, it just bothers me that people are stooping to those depths. And yeah, by the way, when I was doxed, that happened on Zach's radio show. And the guy he claims that he was trying to dox Zach. And then Zach was quickly like, oh, no, that's Derek's address. That's Derek's. And I was like, why would you say that, dude? It almost felt like a coordinated doxing, you know? Because the guy that was talking to him was apparently a police officer. And the whole thing was really weird. So, I don't know what's going on. Doxing is revealing someone's address on the internet. And it's not something that should be messed around with. I mean, it's serious guideline violations when that happens. So, anyway, that's all I got to share with you guys. I have a little special treat for you on my way out today. Since this is Super Stream number 88, I will have you guys know that back in, last year, on the date August 8th, I made a song that was 123 beats per minute. And after I wrote it, I realized 88 equals 123, and I made it on August 8th. And I was like, man, what are the odds of that? So, oops. Trying to get the freaking music set, so. All right, guys. That'll do it for this edition of the Super Stream. Thanks to everybody for watching. My SoundCloud is linked down below in the description. Peace, love, God bless. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.